Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Weekly Roundup. My name is Frankie.
And I'm Ryan from the Coffee Break.
And thank you, Ryan, from the Coffee Break for helping us to compile all the juicy news for the week.
Remember to subscribe to stay smarter.
So, Ryan, this week is really exciting because we are going to talk a lot about memes. And I think memes is starting to take over the world, man.
I mean, it has. It took over the world with 9gag at one point.
Yeah,
right?
correct.
But now it's much easier to share memes compared to how it was before.
Correct, because
right?
memes is easy to understand, it's fun, it is shareable.
It is very relatable, right?
Correct.
And it doesn't just stop between social sharing. So
Yeah.
I think back in 2020, this new term was coined called meme stocks. Back then in crypto, during the bull run, also a lot of meme coins.
Yes, correct.
Right? Like
Even
Dodge
today,
and
yeah, even today there are more and more meme coins are emerging in the crypto world, right? Sometimes I can't really understand what makes all these meme stuff so exciting, but I guess that's the way it is today.
The power of the internet. That is the power, And I think that is what we're going to talk about today.
Yes. Right? So there's this influencer that was very, very active during the pandemic. His name is Keith Gill, or better known as Roaring Kitty.
Have you guys heard of him before? Roaring Kitty. If you're on YouTube, you must have heard of him. Or have heard of him.
Yeah, correct. So he was very active during the pandemic, but after a while, he went quiet. And then suddenly on Monday, he came up with a new tweet, or should we call a new X?
A new meme lah.
A new meme.
Okay, a new meme on X.
A new meme on X, right? And it was a really amusing kind of meme. So it was this guy, he was leaning down, then he decided to move forward in a very serious position, holding a game controller in his hand. That's it. There's no interpretation of what the meme is about. I believe there's no text on it as well. It's just one picture. And that picture caught the attention of the stock market, or rather caught the attention of the online retail investors to quickly spin it into a stock idea. And then they went full on, risk on all the meme stocks again.
Mainly GameStop here lah, right?
Mainly GameStop, but it also spilled over to other meme stocks like AMC, BlackBerry, stocks as well.
Even BlackBerry.
Yeah.
So I think just to give a bit of context, Keith Gill or Roaring Kitty, back in 2021, did his analysis on YouTube, explained why GameStop was a good buy. Of course, a lot of NFA involved, like not financial advice, but he was just analyzing the stock, looking at the movements, who was buying, and there was, I think, even Excel sheets. Maybe not Excel sheets, but there were actually counters, because in the US, I'm not sure here, but in the US, to a certain extent, you can see who is holding what position, where are the shorts at, where are the longs at. Long meaning you are longing for the share, shorts meaning you have a position, you think the price will go down. And I think he was just accumulating, and because as a video game retailer, GameStop, right, it was struggling to survive during the pandemic because gamers went to digital downloads.
Correct. Because number one, you cannot go out, and number two, I think technology these days, the internet is also fast enough.
Yep.
So a lot of all these people, they used to buy the disc for games, but they went into the digital world and they just downloaded it.
So I think that led to hedge funds and investors thinking that GameStop would go down and eventually shorting the stock.
Yeah, the fundamentals are also not very strong. I mean, revenues were down, the profits were down. So obviously a lot of hedge fund managers especially, they would go and short GameStop lah. But there's actually one very interesting characteristics about all these meme stocks, right? Is that all these counters, they have a very high open short positions. Like for example, GameStop, if I could recall correctly, the number of open short position was higher than the number of outstanding shares of GameStop. So it triggered people to think that, hey, what if I can go against all these shorters? Then potentially I can punish them, right? In a sense. So I think that created the hype, and he managed to influence a lot of all this online army of retail investors to follow him, and then they created that buying momentum on all these stocks, and it caught all the fund managers by surprise.
Yeah, it was like a big middle finger to Wall Street. In some sense, that was the case, right? Because you think the shares will go down. In fact, you went to borrow shares that don't belong to you to short the shares. It gets a bit technical. I recall it's a bit of borrowing or pledging of shares that don't belong to me, that I don't have. You know what? I'll buy on your behalf and I want to short this share. Because to take a short position, you don't need to have underlying. And then I think because there were so few shares available because these shorts eventually expire, and then that would drive the share price up because of that, the underlying that they do not have.
Yeah. As stock price starts to increase, all these open short position, they would have to cut loss as well.
Yep.
And if they cut loss, means they have to buy back the shares from the open market, and that would also create another buying momentum on all these stocks. So that's why during the pandemic, when the meme stock starts to rally, it made a lot of fund managers out of job. And if I could recall, a lot of all these hedge funds, they actually close shop.
Yeah, I think some platforms even stop people from trading these shares.
Yeah.
You shouldn't name names, but if you go back, you can know which platform actually stopped people from trading these shares.
Yeah.
Right.
So 4 years later, Roaring Kitty is back in action. But this time round, after a few days of rally, we start to see all these meme stocks starts to soften. But do you think this is just a consolidation, or do you think that the next wave is going to come and history is going to repeat itself?
You know what? He has been quiet about which stock. He never said anything about which stocks, right? He has been posting memes on X, and no indication of which position whatsoever that he's taking. I think maybe he learned his lesson, got too much attention. He was in the money for 40 million for a very small investment. I think not small, but a small size. But it went up to 40 million on his portfolio at that point in time. I honestly think it's just him having a good laugh. Can you just imagine how powerful you are to move the market with just
One picture.
with just a picture,
With just a picture.
right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's also how the world is today with news. So that's why you have to subscribe to the Coffee Break and stay informed.
I think today, with the experience in the past, I think all these investors, fund managers, they are more prepared.
Yep.
You have this army of online retail investors coming to play, right? You are trying to disrupt the market. But the fund managers these days, they will probably go and say, if you want to play the market, please go ahead. I'm going to wait for you on the other side of the market.
Yeah.
And when it reaches a certain level of target price or whatnot, I think all these hedge fund managers will start to be more aggressive doing their shorts. And that is probably the reason why all these meme stocks starts to soften.
Yeah. And circumstances were also a bit different because liquidity was aplenty during that time. Right? But now interest rates are high. The liquidity is not there compared to 2020.
So I was trying to justify the GameStop price rally. But I found out that all three business segments of GameStop, they were all down in the fourth quarter of FY23, right? Suggesting that their fundamental is weak, and I don't think it justifies such a bullish rally, right? So for the fourth quarter period, right, GameStop reported a $1.79 billion in revenue, marking a 19.73% decline from $2.2 billion during the same period last year. So you see, fundamentally speaking, I don't think anyone in a rational mind would go and buy up the stocks.
Unless you're a meme investor.
Unless you're a meme investor, correct. Having said that, I don't think we should go against all these meme investors because I think they are quite powerful these days. I just want to point out that a final note of extreme cautious. We must be very clear that there's significant risk involved when you trade purely under the influence of a meme from social media. And if you're a conservative investor with low tolerance on risk, probably stay away.
Just watch the show from the sideline or even watch the documentary on Netflix. It's not a documentary, actually, it's a movie.
Right.
Called Dumb Money that talk about the event of what happened in 2021.
So during 2021, we had experienced the meme stocks frenzy in the US. Do you recall during that time also in Malaysia, we were experiencing a lockdown. It was the pandemic, and there was one particular industry that rallied tremendously during this period.
I think everyone knew lah. Everyone knows lah.
And a lot of people make a lot of money from this industry. It was the glove stocks. So during that time, a lot of people, without knowing the fundamentals, but ignoring the valuation of glove companies, everyone just plowed their money into the glove industries. Glove stocks were so big that some of the glove companies even be included into the KLCI index.
Yeah.
That was so big.
I remember Top Glove was, I think, the second most valuable on KLCI lah.
Yeah, next to Maybank or something.
Next to Maybank. So it's even more valuable than a bank.
Of course, the justification then was that there was a shortage of glove supply.
And there was a shortage of gloves, right?
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic.
Yeah, but eventually supply caught up because China started to produce their own gloves and things like that. It diluted Malaysian glove makers' punya market share away, and eventually the whole thing just died down. This time round, coincidentally, when the meme stocks revived in the US, our local glove stocks also came back up.
Contagious.
Oh.
Malaysia's Jalan Raja Chulan, not Wall Street, Jalan Raja Chulan.
Jalan Raja Chulan.
It's surprisingly upbeat about the development in the US. Right?
Yeah.
I think US earlier this week announced that there will be tariffs slapped on China-produced goods. 100% was on electric vehicles. So imagine electric vehicles being 100% more expensive in US, right? And gloves, I think, rode the wave. I think when the news came out, 25% tariffs, but that's only in 2026. Not even this year, not even next year.
I think a lot of investors miss the point because this new tariff is going to be imposed in 2026. So technically speaking, 2024, 2025 will not have any material impact on all these glove companies. And don't forget, some of these companies, they are trying to make their inroads into the US, setting up a factory there so that they don't need to rely so much on Southeast Asia to produce gloves, right? And partly also to reduce the reliance on China as well. So I think by 2026, probably US will have the capability of producing their gloves. Probably, right?
Yeah.
So if you think of it that way, they may not necessarily be buying Malaysian gloves.
Yeah.
So yes, while they may cut down their imports from China, but the additional gloves that they need could be produced in their home country. So that may not benefit Malaysian glove companies directly.
Not in the immediate quarter at least.
Yeah.
Because I think some of these companies are still in the reds. And Top Glove is still trying to turn black.
Yeah. So in that sense, it feels like the glove industry in Malaysia is like somewhat behaving like meme stocks.
It also went through a meme stage. I mean, this week clearly it went through a meme. So a lot of the big names, your Harta Lega, your Supermax, Kosan, all saw double-digit percentage gains on Tuesday or Wednesday, right?
But subsequently, I think the glove stocks also experienced the similar kind of the softness with the US meme stocks. Post the hype.
Once people, you know what? Hey, actually take a step back. It's not going to be immediately reflected in this financial year.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Share price just shot up too quickly, too much. So therefore, there's a big correction in the market.
And then Chinese players can also dump their prices in non-US markets.
Yeah, so since we're in the Malaysia market, right, there's also one interesting news that happened this week, and that is Malaysian Airports is going to be privatized. So again, this Malaysian airport, right, it got a lot of attention during the pandemic as well. So during the pandemic, everyone was in lockdown, no one's flying, airports were doing very badly. Share price just tanked very, very deep as well. I still recall a lot of people ask, hey, airports can buy or not? Is it going to go bust? No one's flying, can they sustain? That kind of things. But if you have the foresight that the pandemic will not last forever and eventually things will recover, people will need to fly, people need to travel, right? Connectivity is key, transportation is key. So if you had that kind of foresight, you probably would have bought airport during the pandemic at a very, very cheap valuation.
I think it was single digit.
Single digit.
4-5 ringgit maybe.
4-5 ringgit. Around that range. And post-pandemic, airports obviously recovered. Valuation caught up. Investors started to buy into the stocks again. From 4 ringgit, it doubled up to 8 ringgit. But this week, a very interesting news came out, which is the major shareholder of Malaysia Airports Holdings Bhd, they have decided to privatize the company. Now, what does privatization mean?
Because it's a listed co, so privatization means they're taking the company off the market, off from people like you and I who want to invest in this company.
Correct. So to put it in other words, Malaysian Airports Holdings Bhd, MAHB, right now it's a publicly owned company. So anybody can buy the shares and become a proud owner of Malaysian airports. But once it is privatized, only the private investors will own the company. It will probably be renamed as Malaysian Airports Holdings Bhd.
But let's look into the consortium, right? So Alliance Consortium, right? This is the consortium that will take MAHB, like Malaysia Airports Holdings Bhd. That will value the company at about 18.4 billion. That was 10.40 per share.
Oh, okay.
Right? And when they announced the privatization at 11 ringgit, there wasn't a huge premium. The news was probably already out there, or rumors were probably out there already. Like when we see these takeovers or see privatization, usually there's a huge gap between the last closing price and also the offer price. Right? Like I think look at OCBC Great Eastern last couple of weeks in Singapore. I think there was a gap, right? But this time around, relatively low. So news must have been in the market. Let's talk about the consortium, right? So the consortium is made up of UAM Group, which is fully owned by Khazanah, EPF, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, and funds managed by the Global Infrastructure Partners, right? So in this multi-billion deal, Khazanah's stake in MHB will increase from 33.2 to 40%. EPF will increase to a sizable 30% from 7.9%. And collectively, right, the Malaysian investors will own 70% of MHB. And Abu Dhabi Investment Authority and GIP will own the remaining 30% shares. Well, because it's Malaysian airports, technically, right? Because they own majority, I think all the Malaysian airports in Malaysia, and they will retain a special rights in MHB, and CEO or chairman will continue to be Malaysian citizens.
Government will have a special rights in MAHB. Is this like the one golden share that the Malaysian government owns that could veto on the decision that the company is going to make in the future?
Yeah, because they own the majority of it. They own 70%. So, I mean, this deal may or may not go through, we don't know, because it's going to be executed in the Q4 2024. Right, so it remains to be seen whether this will go through. Because sometimes you can say you want to privatize, but negotiations come through. No, this is not how we want to execute it, right? And this would be actually the country's largest acquisition in nearly 3 years since Digi.com acquired Celcom back in 2021.
And the price was $5.94 billion right, for that deal.
Right? But what do you think, Frankie, about this privatization?
Okay, so for one, I think airport is a lucrative business because when you talk about air transport, there's only one way to access that mode of transport, which is airports. So if you are able to manage it efficiently, I believe the operators will make money, right? So I think the consortium sees the value in Malaysian airports, and they probably think that whatever market is pricing Malaysian airports today is too cheap, right? So because of that, they might as well just take it private. Maybe do some house cleaning, make the operation more efficient, put in new technologies, make it more sexy, right? And then when they are able to demonstrate and unlock the value of the new MAHB, they can do a lot of things with it. They can either keep the consortium to themselves as a private company and continue to milk the company like a cash cow, or they can come back to the market and offer the company at a higher valuation to the market.
They are able to do that now itself, right?
Yeah, technically can, because all you need to do is just to hold a EGM, an extraordinary general meeting, and say that I have this plan for MAHB, put up a vote, and then if there's not enough money, they can always do a private placement, borrow money from the bank, government lending, that kind of stuff. I believe they are still able to do it as a public listed company.
Yeah, at a much lower cost Borrowing by banks not that high, right? 7-8%. I think a corporate maybe 5-6% even, right? So this is a relatively questionable decision. Maybe not obvious to me. But yeah, I also have this question about this privatization because it's a lucrative business, and why would Khazanah want to lock this cash away? Because when you privatize, you have to take the cash out and buy the shares, right? Why is this money not being invested in GameStop or or AMC, right? Why is this privatization happening?
Yeah. But what are the possibilities that you think could happen?
The timing is also quite interesting because the Prime Minister just visited Qatar this past week, right? So there could be some dealings in the Middle East that people are not privy of that. This sort of have to happen. You know what? You want to have investments in Malaysia? Maybe, yeah, you can privatize one of these entities and let us have a piece of that cash cow that you have. Maybe.
I have my own speculation, and this is purely speculation. It has got no fundamentals. I have got no reference or anything. It just purely has come out from my mind. Malaysian Airlines is a private company. If you privatize Malaysian Airport, so you have two private companies that you need to revamp, so to speak. Now, Malaysia Airlines today called MAG, it is turning around.
Yep.
It is going back into black. MAHB, if you do some magic there, potentially you can unlock more value in it.
Yep.
Maybe
there is some,
strategic alliance
there,
and if you can group these two entities together, I'm not sure, I'm just speculating again, and come out to the market again as one entity, a Malaysian aviation group or something like that, right? Potentially it can be quite exciting to watch.
It can be, but the operations will be so. I mean, just think about accounting terms or operating will be so different.
Yes,
right. Because one will be like a cash cow. The other one is literally not bleeding money, but it costs so much to run the
airlines
business.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a speculation because it will have a whole new set of problem if you merge these two entities together, because these two businesses are in different industry. One is a property management business, one is an airline business. Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Why are they doing this privatization? So I guess, Frankie, that sums up all the news we have today. From memes to airports.
Yeah. Yeah. And what should I say? Well, if you like this show, don't forget to subscribe the YouTube channel, and also you can catch us on Spotify as well. See you guys next week.
Take care. Bye.